The air in Willow Creek Park buzzed with the easy rhythm of a Sunday afternoon. It was the kind of day that felt like a sigh of relief, mild breeze, sunshine pouring through green leaves, and the scent of grilled corn and kettle popcorn drifting lazily between clusters of families. Children played tag around the gazebo, dogs tugged their leashes after squirrels, and a high school jazz band performed soft tunes near the fountain. No one expected the interruption. Not at first. It began as a ripple in the edge of the crowd, someone pointing, then another, then a soft murmur that spread like a hush across the park. A stray dog had wandered in. He was hard to miss, big, lanky, some kind of shepherd, mixed with patchy fur, the color of dust and charcoal. He walked with a limp, his right front leg dragging just slightly. His ribs showed through a tangled coat, and mud caked around his paws, as if he'd walked miles to get there. One ear flopped over, the other stood alert. People paused their conversations. The dog didn't bark or whimper. He didn't beg or chase. He just walked slow and steady, like he had somewhere to be. He didn't look hungry, though he probably was. He looked focused. A toddler ran toward him, squealing with delight, but the child's mother scooped him up quickly, eyeing the animal with suspicion. Another man reached for his phone, not to call anyone, but to record. Maybe for social media. Maybe just in case something happened. The dog didn't care. He kept walking, his eyes scanning left to right, as if searching for something or someone. That's when he saw her. Emily was crouched near the edge of the duck pond, in a powder blue sundress decorated with tiny white flowers. Her hair was braided into two loose pigtails, and she was scooping water into a red plastic bucket. She was 7, imaginative and fearless. She loved pretending the pond was a secret sea filled with baby dragons. Her parents were nearby, sitting on a plaid blanket under an oak tree. Her mom was showing her dad something on her phone, laughing softly. They didn't see the dog, but the dog saw Emily. The shift in him was instant. He stopped walking, tilted his head slightly, and fixed his gaze on her. Not in the way predators do, but with a kind of intensity, alert and focused. Then he began moving again, this time straight toward the pond. Straight toward Emily. The people closest to him moved aside. Some stepped back. Others held their breath. The jazz music slowed. Conversations faded. No one said a word. He passed the fountain, the band, the playground. His pace didn't change. He didn't look right or left. Just kept walking. Emily didn't notice. She was too busy filling her bucket, chatting quietly to her imaginary dragons. The dog was just 10 yards away now. 5. Then 3. A woman gasped and clutched her child's hand. A teenager filming with his phone whispered, "What is he doing?" Emily turned at the last second, the red bucket still in her hand, water sloshing over the edge. She looked up at the dog, blinking against the sun. He stopped. His body stiffened. His ears twitched. His tail, limp moments earlier, raised slightly. Then something strange happened. He didn't bark. Didn't growl. Didn't wag. He crouched low and let out a deep, low rumble, not threatening, but steady, controlled. His eyes weren't on Emily. They were on something behind her. At the edge of the tall grass lining the pond. A subtle ripple moved through the reeds. Then came a flash of patterned scales. A rattlesnake. Emily hadn't seen it yet, but the dog had. The entire park held its breath, frozen in place, as instinct kicked in, and the animal everyone thought was a stray did something no one could have predicted. Everything seemed to slow down. Emily was still crouched by the pond, her tiny fingers clutching the red plastic bucket. She was mid-sentence, talking to a make-believe dragon inside the water, unaware that behind her, just inches from the grass line, a real danger had slithered into her world. The dog didn't move at first. His growl deepened, not aggressive, not loud, but warning. His body went rigid, muscles coiled, tail frozen midair. His eyes never left the movement in the grass. People in the park could sense something was wrong, though most hadn't spotted the snake yet. A man near the bench pointed. "It's a rattler," he said sharply, stepping backward. The word spread quickly. The tension rippled across the open field like a shockwave. Emily blinked and slowly turned, confused by the dog's growl. That's when she saw it. The rattlesnake had emerged fully from the grass, its patterned body coiled and tense. It lifted, its head slightly off the ground, tongue flicking, rattles buzzing sharply in warning. It was a western diamondback, big and thick, sunbathing before being disturbed. Now it was cornered and ready to strike. Emily froze. The dog surged forward with no hesitation. The dog lunged between the snake and the girl, placing his body in front of her like a living shield. The snake hissed and struck, its mouth wide, fangs flashing. Gasps erupted from the crowd. The dog twisted mid-air, taking the bite to his shoulder instead of his neck. He snarled, then snapped his jaws around the snake's body. The two rolled together into the shallow edge of the pond, splashing violently. Emily screamed. Her father bolted from under the oak tree, leaping over a stroller as he ran. Others followed. But the fight was already over. The dog had clamped down on the snake's neck, crushing it with a single powerful bite. He stood over it, panting, water dripping from his snout, blood oozing from the puncture on his shoulder. His eyes scanned for more threats before they finally flicked back to Emily. He stepped out of the pond, limping, and walked toward her. She didn't run, didn't cry. She just stared at him with wide, wondering eyes. The dog reached her slowly, his body shaking now, pain settling into his bones. When he got close enough, he lowered his head and gently nudged her hand with his nose. It was as if he were making sure she was okay. Emily reached out and patted his wet fur. "You're hurt," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but there was something steady in the way she spoke, like she already trusted him completely. By then, her parents had reached her. Her mother scooped her into her arms, checking her over frantically. Her father stood between the dog and his family for a moment, unsure what to do. Then he saw the snake broken and lifeless in the grass. He turned back to the dog, now laying down, panting hard with his side heaving. "He saved her," someone in the crowd said softly. More people gathered. Phones were out. Videos were already uploading. Park rangers jogged in with medical kits and gloves. One of them approached the snake cautiously, confirming what many had already guessed. It was deadly, fully grown, and ready to strike before. The dog intervened. "He took the bite for her," the ranger said grimly, examining the wound on the dog's shoulder. A vet tech who happened to be nearby knelt beside the dog, checking his vitals. "He needs help now. We've got to get him to a clinic." Emily tugged her father's sleeve. "We can't leave him. He saved me." And suddenly, that became the only thing that mattered. Not his matted coat, not the dirt in his fur, not the fact that no one knew where he came from. He had stepped forward when it mattered most. And while the whole park had watched in silence, he'd chosen to fight. The dog was carefully lifted into the back of a park ranger's truck, resting on a folded picnic blanket as two volunteers steadied his limp body. One of them pressed a towel gently to his wounded shoulder, trying to slow the bleeding. The vet tech, a woman named Darcy, sat beside him and monitored his breathing. His eyes stayed open, tired, dull, but still tracking Emily even as the truck door closed. Emily stood with her arms wrapped around her mother's waist, tears welling in her eyes. "Is he going to be okay?" she asked. Darcy looked out the back window of the truck. "We're going to try." The crowd slowly began to disperse, but the mood was different now, quieter, more reverent. people didn't just walk away. They lingered, whispering, staring at the patch of grass where the snake had died and the water's edge where the dog had stood. Someone uploaded a video of the dog's leap to strike the aftermath. The title was simple: Stray Dog Saves Girl from Rattlesnake at Willow Creek Park. Within 2 hours, it had been shared over 200,000 times. The ranger drove straight to the closest emergency vet, where a team was already waiting. Darcy stayed by the dog's side the entire way, whispering to him like he was a wounded soldier returning from battle. "He's strong," she told the staff as they lifted him onto the table. Took the bite like he knew exactly what he was doing. The bite was shallow but dangerous. The venom had begun to circulate, and without immediate care, the dog would go into shock. They worked fast antivenom, fluids, pain meds, the wound. Cleaned and bandaged. They scanned him for a microchip. Nothing. No collar. No tag. No owner. When they asked what his name was, Darcy hesitated. Then she said softly, "He doesn't have one." Not yet. Across town, Emily refused to eat her dinner. She sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window. "I want to see him," she whispered. Her parents exchanged worried glances. They weren't sure what to do. What if the dog didn't survive? What if he wasn't safe to be around? But they couldn't ignore what he'd done. He hadn't just wandered into the park, he'd protected their daughter. Risked his life for her. Later that evening, her father called the vet clinic. Darcy answered. He made it through surgery. He's stable, sleeping now. Emily was finally able to smile. By morning, the video had gone viral. News vans parked outside the clinic. Reporters called him everything from the brave stray to the four-legged guardian. Offers to adopt him flooded in from around the country. But Emily already knew the truth. "He's mine," she said quietly, holding the drawing she made of him. Big ears, kind eyes, a bandage on one shoulder. "He came for me." At the clinic, the staff couldn't stop watching the footage. The way the dog had positioned himself. The speed of his reaction. His refusal to leave Emily even after he'd been bitten. "He's not just a stray," one nurse said. "That dog's trained." Darcy nodded. "I think he's something else entirely." By afternoon, the clinic posted an update to their social media page. The Willow Creek dog alive, healing, and officially a hero. In the comments, a woman from Arizona swore she'd seen a dog just like him outside a shelter 3 years ago. A retired soldier from Nevada said the dog reminded him of a military canine he'd served with. Details were fuzzy. The dog's past was a blank page. But something about the way he moved, the way he protected without hesitation, it felt like instinct, not accident. The mystery deepened, but one thing was clear. He hadn't just saved Emily. He'd saved something in the town, too. A sense of wonder. A belief that heroes still existed, even if they didn't have a name. Asterisk. The dog lay curled in a padded recovery crate at the veterinary clinic, his shoulder wrapped tightly in clean gauze. And 4-line ran from his foreleg to a bag of fluids above him. He slept most of the time, but when he woke, he didn't whimper or bark. He simply looked around the room with those calm, intelligent eyes. Darcy sat outside his crate during every break. She couldn't explain it, but there was something about him, something deeper than instinct. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't wild. And even in pain, he was alert and calculated, like he was always on duty. She watched how he flinched only once, when touched on his side. She noticed the faint scars beneath his fur, the way his ears rotated toward every footstep in the hallway, and how he refused to eat unless she stayed close. He wasn't just a stray. Meanwhile, the town had taken the story and run with it. Local news covered the incident from every angle, and the video, already at over 4 million views, was sparking conversation online. People wanted answers. A man named Tom Hensley, a retired canine handler from Colorado, called the clinic after watching the footage. "I can't be sure," he said over the phone, "but I'd bet that dog was trained by the military. Maybe even a tracker." Darcy listened carefully. "Why do you think that?" "Because of how he moved," Tom explained. "The way he positioned himself between the girl and the threat. The way he stayed focused under stress. Even his bite pattern. It's not random. That dog's been through training, real training." Darcy glanced at the crate. "Then how? Did he end up alone in a park?" Tom sighed. "That's the hard part. Dogs like that don't just go missing. Unless someone let him go or lost him somewhere they shouldn't have." The clinic ran his photo through lost pet databases, shelter archives, even former military dog registries. Nothing matched. No one came forward. Still, the story refused to cool down. Outside the clinic, dozens of cards and stuffed toys had piled up under the windows. Children left hand-drawn pictures of the brave dog, while a woman from Texas mailed a custom leather collar with Hero stitched across it in gold thread. And through all the noise, Emily waited. She visited the clinic with her parents on Thursday afternoon. When she stepped into the recovery room, the dog, still stiff and sore, lifted his head slightly. His tail tapped twice against the mat. Just twice. Emily tiptoed up to the crate and crouched beside it. "Hi," she whispered, smiling as she pressed her hand gently to the metal bars. "I missed you." To everyone's surprise, the dog pulled himself forward and rested his nose right against her fingers. Darcy watched in silence. Something was happening that no one could explain. No barking, no hesitation. The connection between the dog and the girl wasn't just gratitude. It felt like recognition. "He saved her," Emily's mom said softly to Darcy. "But I think she saved something in him too." Later that night, after the clinic had closed and the lights were dimmed, Darcy stayed behind. She reviewed the footage one more time, frame by frame. The way the dog entered the park, scanned the crowd, locked eyes on Emily, the hesitation, the protection. The way he collapsed only after the danger had passed. Then something in the background caught her attention. In the top right corner of the screen, just for a moment, was a glimpse of something unexpected. A mark on the dog's flank, nearly obscured by dirt and matted fur. Darcy paused the video, zoomed in. It was faint, almost invisible, but it looked exactly like a faded tattoo. A military serial number. Her heart skipped a beat. The dog wasn't just trained, he was accounted for once. And now, someone out there might be looking for him. Darcy stared at the paused video, her breath caught in her throat. The camera quality wasn't perfect, and the image was grainy, but there was no mistaking it now. A faded tattoo on the dog's right flank. 4 digits followed by 2 letters. 07B9K9. It wasn't decorative. It was military. She stood quickly and made a call. First to the K9 handler who'd phoned the clinic earlier, Tom Hensley. He picked up on the second ring. "You were right," Darcy said without hesitation. "He has a tattoo. Looks military. I took a screenshot. Sending it now." Within minutes, Tom called back, his voice more serious than before. "That's a federal tag. The 07B9 is the unit code. K9 is the designation. That's not just any dog. That's a U.S. military working dog." Darcy blinked, processing. Then, he had a handler? A unit? Tom's voice lowered. "Yes, and a record. Dogs like him aren't abandoned. If he's out here alone, something happened. You need to report this." By the next morning, the story had shifted. What started as a viral feel-good tale of a stray saving a child had suddenly taken on a new layer mystery. Military working dog with no home, no handler, no records anyone could find. Darcy reached out to the Department of Defense with the code. The reply came quicker than expected. K907B9K9, registered under the name Axel, assigned to Forward Operating Base Sentinel, Afghanistan. Deployed in 2020. Status: deceased. The word hit like a blow to the chest. But Axel wasn't dead. He was lying in the next room, recovering from a snake bite, and gently licking peanut butter from Emily's outstretched fingers. Just hours ago, someone had made a mistake or covered something up. Darcy sat back, her mind racing. What if Axel had been declared dead for convenience? What if his handler had never reported the truth? Dogs were rarely retired without paperwork. He had to have been brought back, but how had he ended up in Willow Creek? She couldn't keep it to herself. She told Emily's parents, who sat stunned in the clinic lobby as Darcy explained everything. He's not a stray, she said. He was trained for combat. He had a handler, a base, a purpose. And somewhere, along the way, he disappeared. Emily, sitting on the floor beside her father, looked up quietly. Does that mean he's not mine? Darcy knelt down beside her. It means he has a story, one we don't know yet. But that doesn't mean he doesn't belong with you now. News spread fast. Reporters updated headlines from stray saves. Girl to military K9 presumed dead found alive after heroic rescue. People speculated wildly. Had Axel's handler died overseas, leaving him stranded? Had he escaped something? Was he smuggled out, forgotten, dumped? No one knew, but interest surged. Veterans from across the country began commenting online, some even posting old photos of their units. A few thought they recognized Axel, but couldn't say for sure. Then, late one night, Darcy received a direct message from a private account. Subject: I know that dog. Message: his name is Axel. I was his handler. Darcy's heart jumped. She read it twice before replying. Within the hour, they were on a video call. The man on the screen looked exhausted, thick beard, dark circles under his eyes. He wore a baseball cap low over his forehead and spoke softly. My name is Staff. Sergeant Ethan Cole. I trained Axel. We deployed together. We were separated during a transport hit outside Kandahar. I was told he didn't make it. He paused, but I never believed it. Darcy turned her laptop slightly so he could see the dog sleeping nearby, still bandaged, but safe. Ethan stared. His face crumpled. I thought I'd never see him again. Axel stirred, his ears twitching at the sound of Ethan's voice. For the first time since arriving at the clinic, he let out a soft, familiar whine. Got recognition. Got a sound that bridged the years and their silence. Axel had been found, but the story wasn't over. Not even close. Staff Sergeant Ethan Cole stood outside the veterinary clinic with shaking hands. The ride from his rural cabin had taken over 5 hours, but it felt longer than the years he'd spent trying to forget. When the glass door opened and he stepped inside, the buzz of cameras, reporters, and whispering voices vanished into the background. For a brief moment, all he could hear was the sound of claws tapping on the tile floor. Darcy met him at the front with a clipboard in her hand, but she didn't say a word. She just nodded toward the recovery room. He's through. There, she said gently. Ethan walked slowly, boots heavy against the floor. The moment he crossed into the room, Axel lifted his head. He was lying on a padded mat, still sore and bandaged, but his eyes locked on Ethan with razor-sharp clarity. No hesitation. No fear. Only recognition. Ethan dropped to his knees. Hey, Uddy, he whispered, his voice already cracking. It's really you. Axel pushed himself up with effort, his tail beginning to wag despite the pain in his shoulder. He limped forward and placed his head in Ethan's hands. Ethan buried his face in the dog's neck. "I thought I lost you. I thought," but the words broke off. Axel whimpered softly, nuzzling into his old handler's chest, like no time had passed at all. Darcy stood nearby, holding back tears. Emily and her parents watched from the doorway, silent and still. Where was he? Ethan asked later, when Axel had settled back into his mat. How did he end up here? Darcy explained what she could, how Axel had been found in the park, how he'd protected Emily without hesitation, how he'd been listed as deceased by the military years ago. Ethan shook his head slowly. "We were ambushed during a convoy transfer. I got separated when the truck behind us took a direct hit. There was smoke, chaos. I saw him break free of the vehicle, but then we were pulled out. They told me later he was gone." He paused, voice distant. "But I never saw a body. I kept asking questions. They shut the file and shipped me home." Darcy exhaled. "He's been wandering ever since." Ethan looked down. "No, he's been looking for something." Emily stepped into the room, holding a small drawing. She had made a new one, this time with Axel and a man kneeling beside him. She handed it to Ethan. "He saved me," she said softly. "But I think he was saving you too." Ethan blinked, swallowing hard. "Thank you," he said, "for keeping him safe, both of you." That night, the story hit national news. Missing military dog reunited with handler after rescuing local girl. It was everywhere on television, online, in newspapers. People flooded the clinic with gifts, donations, and support. But behind the scenes, difficult conversations began. Axel was still technically government property, at least on paper. Military officials reached out, requesting statements, logs, photos. Investigations were launched. Some suggested Axel be returned to a base for reassignment. Others argued he should be formally retired. Public opinion was overwhelming. Let him stay. Emily's parents, Ethan and Darcy, stood together during a live press conference. "This dog gave his life to the military," Ethan said firmly. "Then he gave it again to protect a little girl. He deserves peace. He deserves home." Emily stepped up to the mic. "He already picked it." The room fell quiet. The next morning, after calls from veterans groups, senators, and even a few celebrities, the Pentagon issued a rare ruling. Axel was to be honorably discharged and permanently placed in the care of Staff Sergeant Ethan Cole, with special visitation rights granted to Emily, the girl he never hesitated to protect. Outside the clinic, a small ceremony was held. Axel, now in a custom vest with the words "Retired," "Respected Hero," stitched into the side, stood between Ethan and Emily. His tail wagged steadily, not as a soldier, not as a stray, but as someone who had finally come home. The days following Axel's honorable discharge were filled with a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments. For Ethan, stepping back into civilian life alongside the dog who had never truly left his side felt like both a blessing and a challenge. Axel wasn't the same dog who had vanished years ago. The long months alone, the venomous snakebite, and the mysterious years missing had left marks beyond the visible scars. Ethan carefully watched Axel as they settled into a quiet home on the outskirts of town. The dog was still recovering, and the vets had warned that his shoulder would require months of rehabilitation. But Axel's spirit was strong, almost unbreakable. There was a quiet resilience in his eyes, the same intensity that had guided him. Through countless deployments. Every morning, Ethan helped Axel with physical therapy exercises, slow walks, gentle stretches, and the occasional splash in the backyard creek that reminded Axel of the one where he'd saved Emily. The dog moved, cautiously at first, but grew steadily more confident. Sometimes Ethan caught Axel pausing at the window, ears perked, as if listening for sounds only he could hear. Emily didn't stay away either. She visited often, sometimes bringing her little brother along, who adored the dog from a distance. The bond between girl and dog deepened with each meeting. Quiet walks in the park, shared snacks, and afternoons spent drawing pictures that Axel seemed to inspect with thoughtful eyes. One day, Emily asked Ethan a question that surprised him. "Do you think Axel misses the military?" Ethan paused, considering. "I think he misses the purpose, the sense of duty. But I also think he's learning that there are other ways to protect and serve." Emily smiled. "Like saving me." "Exactly. But healing wasn't just physical. Axel carried the invisible weight of loss, the sudden separation from his handler, the confusion of years alone, and the pain of being declared dead when he was very much alive. At night, Ethan would sit by Axel's side, stroking his fur, whispering promises that he would never be abandoned again. The local community embraced Axel's story, too. Schools invited Ethan and Axel to speak about service dogs, courage, and resilience. Veterans who once served with Ethan stopped by to offer support and shared their own stories of loss and hope. Axel became more than a hero. He became a symbol. Despite all the attention, Ethan was determined to protect Axel's privacy and peace. The viral fame that had catapulted the dog into the national spotlight was now a double-edged sword. The media wanted more stories, more photos, more interviews. But Axel needed calm, consistency, and love. One afternoon, as the sun set behind the hills, Ethan and Axel sat side by side on the porch. The air was cool, the cicadas humming softly. Axel rested his head on Ethan's knee, tail thumping gently. "I never thought I'd get you back," Ethan said quietly. "But now that you're here, I'm not letting go." Axel's eyes met his, full of trust and gratitude. No words were needed. Later that week, Ethan received a letter from the military. It was an official commendation recognizing Axel's bravery and service, along with a formal apology for the mistaken declaration of his death. The letter also included a request for Ethan and Axel to participate in a nationwide campaign supporting military working dogs, helping raise awareness for those still in service and those transitioning to civilian life. Ethan and Axel accepted that it was a new chapter, one they would face together. Back in town, Emily watched as Axel and Ethan prepared for their next big step. She felt proud, but also a little wistful. She whispered to her mother, "Axel's my hero too. He saved me and found his way back to the person who needed him most." Her mother smiled. "And you helped him heal." As twilight settled, the dog who had walked into a hospital to save a little girl had now found his forever home, surrounded by those who loved him. And finally, Axel was at peace. Months passed, and the small town of Willow Creek had never felt so alive with stories of hope and courage. Axel, once a lost military dog declared dead, was now a living legend, a symbol of resilience, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between a dog and his humans. Ethan, Cole, and Axel traveled across the country as part of the military's campaign to raise awareness for working dogs. They visited schools, military bases, and veterans' hospitals, sharing their story and encouraging support for the dogs who risked their lives alongside soldiers. Axel's gentle demeanor and heroic past touched everyone they met, from curious children to hardened veterans. Despite the busy schedule, Ethan always made time to return to Willow Creek. Emily and her family became close friends, united by the extraordinary journey Axel had taken. The girl who had once been saved by the dog was now part of a new family, one that extended beyond bloodlines to those forged by trust, kindness, and courage. One crisp autumn afternoon, Ethan and Emily sat on a bench in the park where Axel had first been found. The dog lay contentedly at their feet, sun warming his coat. Emily handed Ethan a folded piece of paper. "It's a story I wrote," she said shyly. About Axel. Ethan unfolded the paper and read aloud. Axel wasn't just a dog. He was a soldier, a protector, a friend. He lost his way, but never lost his heart. When the world thought he was gone, he was still fighting for those he loved. And in the end, he found his way home. Ethan smiled, his eyes misty. That's perfect, Emily. Axel lifted his head, as if he understood every word. The town held a small ceremony that evening to honor Axel's service and the incredible reunion. Veterans, townsfolk, and families gathered under the fading sky. Ethan spoke humbly, thanking everyone for their support and sharing how Axel's story had brought a community together. Emily's parents stepped forward and presented Axel with a custom plaque engraved with his military serial number and the words, Axel, a hero's heart never forgets. Axel sniffed the plaque, tail wagging slowly. He didn't know the weight of the words, but he felt the love behind them. As the crowd dispersed, Ethan knelt beside Axel. You're not just a dog or a soldier, he said softly. You're family. That night, as Axel slept soundly by the fireplace, Ethan reflected on their journey. The years of uncertainty, pain, and separation had tested them both. But in the end, it was loyalty and love that brought them back together. Axel's story didn't just end with a reunion. It sparked a movement. Donations poured in to support retired military working dogs. New protocols were established to ensure no dog would be mistakenly lost or forgotten. And most importantly, the world learned that sometimes the greatest heroes wear fur. Emily, now inspired by Axel's bravery, dreamed of working with animals herself someday, maybe even helping other dogs find their way home. Axel's path was never easy, but it was a testament to the power of connection between a dog and a girl, a soldier and his partner, and a community that refused to give up. And through it all, Axel remained the same dog who once walked into a hospital and changed everything, proving that sometimes the most profound acts of heroism come without words, just a quiet, steadfast heart.